Greetings, everyone, and welcome. July the 13th, 2025. And as you can see by the thumbnail, I want to jump straight in. 24 hours we have until we are supposed to hear some great statement from Donald Trump in regard to Russia and Ukraine. Now, the image here, I'm just kind of trying to find the clues like Sherlock Holmes, and I have discovered a massive clue coming out of Russia today. In fact, if you're watching this video as soon as it drops, you're going to see the video before the Russian people see it, because it does not broadcast until I think either 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Local time in Moscow. So we have a statement from Putin where he is prepping the ground for whatever Trump is going to say tomorrow, if anything. But we have another clue in regard to NATO. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and commenting. We're growing and we're trying to get the truth out, and together we all make a great team. Let's jump straight here. Putin interview tonight. He talks to his personal reporter, Zarubin, who has been there with him for 20 years. Of course, these are very specific questions that are asked, and there's no question it is in preparation for whatever statements will be coming out of Washington, D.C. and or NATO tomorrow, especially on the heels of the great and powerful statements that Germany has made over the last couple of days. The geopolitical, not the USSR ideology, as previously thought, lies at the heart of contradictions between Russia and the West. Putin states, and you're getting ready to hear it, I've got it voiced over for you, they are not ready to reckon with the Russian Federation until it declares itself a sovereign power capable of defending its interest, the president noted. So here it is, guys. This is the clue. You need to analyze it looking ahead to tomorrow and the future of this war against Ukraine. It was clear from the very beginning of the 2000s. Still, we had illusions, and I did too, which boiled down to this. I and many others, I'm sure, at that time believed that the problems in relations between the Soviet Union and the so-called West were based on ideological differences. On one side, a communist regime, which many considered to be a tyranny, and on the other side, the democratic world led by the United States. And many believed, I did too, strange as it may seem, even though I worked for nearly 20 years in Soviet intelligence. I also believed that the main conflict was ideological in nature. But when the Soviet Union no longer existed, when there was no more communist regime, there was still a dismissive attitude toward the national strategic interest of the Russian Federation. Not just dismissive, it was also tied to an explicit desire to gain certain geopolitical advantages. Moreover, even when I became president, I didn't immediately understand everything. I began telling my counterparts, look, you say one thing, but you do another, and here is the proof of it. And I showed this proof, and they nodded and said, yeah, we'll fix it. And nothing happened. Everything stayed the same or even went in the opposite direction, and it became clear to me that ideology probably had some role in this. But at the core of all these contradictions lie geopolitical interest. That's the essential point, and considering that the Soviet Union performed an auto-da-fé, essentially liquidated itself, including, I think, though I never spoke about this with my predecessors, we just assumed that Russia would then become part of the so-called civilized world. But no, in the West, they decided, well, the Soviet Union is gone. Why should we follow any rules in regard to Russia, which no longer possesses the potential and the power that the Soviet Union had? Now we'll just slice things up for ourselves however we want and live by rules we invented for ourselves. We'll ignore their interests gradually. I won't go into the details right now. Since we proposed a lot in the area of strategic offensive arms and missile defense, everything was rejected. It became clear that unless we assert ourselves as an independent sovereign power capable of defending our own future, no one will take us seriously. And there you have it. So there is so much to unload in there. But in a nutshell, as we're looking ahead to tomorrow, he's painting Russia as the victim. It's not ideological differences. It's oh, well, it's the same USSR, now it's just in Russia. He said, no, 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 no. There is a geopolitical game here. Everybody else is lying. They do whatever they want. They've told us it's going to change. It never changes. And we must validate that we are a power. We should not be looked down upon because the Soviet Union broke up. All of this is before we are supposed to hear, and there are rumors out there, anything from 300 million in aid all the way to unblocking frozen Russian assets worth 5 billion. In addition to that, guys, just let's think logically here. It could be a good distraction for the disaster inside the United States politically right now, which is the Epstein list, which has the entire country in turmoil. And that's all parties included, MAGA included. So there's no telling, but Vladimir Putin is getting a step ahead of the game, and you need to pay attention to that. Now, what else? Kim Jong-un, he has reaffirmed, and we talked about this, but now he has made a statement, unconditional support for the actions of the Russian leadership to resolve the war in Ukraine. So it's not just partnership with Russia, but unconditional to support to help you fight the war against Ukraine. Now, here comes another clue, guys. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, Monday, July the 14th. He plans to hold meetings with President Donald Trump and U.S. Secretary of Defense Hegseth. It is specified that the official reason for the visit of the NATO Secretary General is not confirmed. They don't have a specific reason. He's going for this. No, he's just going to meet Trump, and he's going to meet Hegseth, and most likely, this is going to be in connection with the statement that Donald Trump is going to make, that weapons are going to be sold through NATO, going to work through NATO into Ukraine. It's just another clue we have. We're 24 hours out. We're watching, and we're only reporting step by step and facts by facts. Now, you may or may not know this guy, but you need to hear this. This is Joel Rubin. Rubin worked for 3 U.S. government agencies in the administrations of Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, the Department of Energy, USAID, and the State Department. He was a Assistant Secretary of State Department, I think, under John Kerry. He basically says that Putin is not a friend of the United States, but he makes 2 powerful statements here that you need to hear. The other thing about Joel Rubin, yes, he's a Democrat, but he worked in the administrations of a Republican and a Democrat with George Bush and Barack Obama. So here we go. This is Joel Rubin. I think it was on MSNBC. He was being interviewed.
So, Joel, now to you. I'm curious what you make of the turn in Trump and Putin's relationship. Also, what took the president so long to figure out that which so many other people have figured out in terms of Putin's intent and the way he behaves. But there is a growing frustration now from the president. Could it have an impact on Russia backing off on Ukraine?
Yeah, Alex, my first thought is welcome to reality. Donald Trump, it's nice that you've finally joined us in the assessment that Vladimir Putin is not a friend of the United States. And so will this have an impact or not? I don't know. Quite frankly, I think actions speak louder than words. And, President Trump, he likes to talk a good game about peace through strength. But this Russia policy that he's been enacting is nothing but weak. He needs to turn. He needs to support the sanctions that 85 senators now co-sponsored. That is a package that will reassert American pressure on Russia. He hasn't done that yet. He hasn't called for it. He needs to get control of his Pentagon, who apparently, unwitting to him, withheld weapons, and he was embarrassed in public when he was asked about it.
Fact.
Sitting right next to the Secretary of Defense, who had signed off on withholding those weapons. But he needs to get back into reality full, as opposed to a couple of words here or there, and really understand that Vladimir Putin has been playing him like a fiddle.
And there you have it. And I agree with everything that man just said. Welcome to reality. And hopefully we see a significant change here. Putin is not a friend of the United States. He goes on in the interview and talks some other things. And I just grabbed the last piece of it because for Ukraine, and this is why you see the thumbnail here, trying to be Sherlock Holmes and figure this out. 24 hours to go. We see Putin's statement. We're hearing about the Trump administration, what they're going to be doing tomorrow. You may ask, well, why is Zelenskyy in there? What are you looking at there? It's actually Rubin's concluding statement about Ukrainians' ability to trust the United States of America. Looking forward to hearing your comments, reading your comments, and interacting with you on these different things that we have submitted to you today. So here we go. Let's take a look at the last clip.
And I think that we really don't know what the policy is right now. It's all over the place. And if you're the Ukrainians, you have to be scared because you don't know if you're going to wake up one day and either be Donald Trump's best friend or his adversary. And they need more certainty than what they're getting from this White House.
Or if they're going to get the kind of supplies they've come to rely on from this White House. One day makes a difference. All right, Joel Rubin, good to see you. Thank you so much.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Joel Rubin. So we've heard from Putin. We've seen about Rute, Kim Jong-un, these statements from Rubin. I think we can look at those things factually and say, okay, the clock is ticking because it is Donald Trump himself who said Monday, huge statement. Okay, we're waiting. The clock is ticking and we'll be watching. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and commenting. It's so encouraging to see the growth as we work together to fight for truth everywhere. So you guys be blessed, and we'll be back at you watching everything nonstop.